Despite the fact that I am certain you have heard this before, I believe that it is accurate to say that the moment when we finally get to turn the switch is finally getting closer and closer to us. The situation is different this time around. This is because everything has the potential to change, and everything will change in just 1 week. Following the impending re-elections and consequently the anticipated dismissal of Gary Gensler, the likelihood of an exchange-traded fund ETF being established for XRP will rise. The price of Bitcoin is currently climbing toward an all-time high of $74,000 as a direct result of these developing events. Now, first things first, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong wrote that the future chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission ought to remove all charges that are deemed to be frivolous and issue an apology to the citizens of the United States. Furthermore, taking into consideration the hypocrisy and inconsistencies that are present in the arguments presented by the SEC, as demonstrated in this image from Brian Armstrong, and also as explained in this segment of his interview with BIP CEO Brad Garlinghouse during the Philadelphia Fed meeting on digital asset exchange traded funds ETFs, this is a message that I am able to wholeheartedly support. It is important to keep in mind that they were essentially coerced into approving the ETF against their will. They were instructed by a judge to sort of finally, alright, the quote was, "You are being arbitrary and capricious in the way that you are implementing the law." It is evident that there is a great deal of demand for the Bitcoin Exchange Traded Fund ETF, and because of this, it has been successful. In addition, the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) made the announcement the following day that they will be appealing some aspects of the decision. This was, once again, something that I believe does not feel like somebody who is attempting to work constructively and with the primary objective of protecting investors. According to what you have heard, Brad Garlinghouse has effectively verified that institutions are interested in gaining access to XRP. Prior to Gary Geller's timely appeal to the SEC, there were 2 exchange-traded funds using XRP. In light of this, my understanding of what Brad Garlinghouse is expressing to the Federal Reserve is that if Gary Geller were to step down from his position as chair, additionally, there would be several ETs for XRP. In addition, I believe that Brian Armstrong is of the same opinion. It is important that you pay attention to the meaning behind his message as well as the terminology that he uses here. According to my interpretation, Brian Armstrong is practically stating that the new chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission will be introduced very soon. This is a time frame that is sufficient for these so-called frivolous cases to still be underway and, as a result, require dismissal. Cases such as the Ripple action, the Coinbase litigation, and the Robinhood lawsuit are just a few examples of the many available options. This also corresponds with what institutional leaders and documents have been saying time and time again, which is that the United States of America can no longer afford to be anti-innovation or anti-crypto. As a result, Gary Gensler has no future at the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC). If the Securities and Exchange Commission were to win, it would be a disaster for the entire cryptocurrency business, but it would not put an end to cryptocurrency. No, it would not. More of this innovation would be sent overseas, which would put the United States of America in a position where it would be at a higher risk of slipping even further behind. Apologizing is the least that they could do in this situation. And my belief is that it would be their only chance of survival, and it would at the very least bring a small amount of faith back into the agency, which Gary Gensler has completely destroyed. On this particular episode of CNBC, Chris Larson makes the assertion that Gary Gensler is the worst public servant in the history of the United States. Once more, this is a highly audacious statement that was made on a platform that is considered to be mainstream media. When you get members of the Securities and Exchange Commission who used to work there as well as jumping on the bandwagon, it only gets better for us as investors and worse for Gary Gensler. Everyone is now airing out their dirty laundry and taking constant pop shots at Gary Gensler. As you can see in this piece by Alana Terbright, a journalist for Fox Business, an ex-SEC lawyer went from being an opponent of cryptocurrency to a supporter of it. She went from being an enforcer to an advocate. But this article discusses Layden Stewart, who worked as an enforcement attorney for the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) for 8 years. During that time, he assisted in the prosecution of high-profile lawsuits against prominent cryptocurrency startups such as Coinbase and Ripple, for example. However, she is now a partner at the prestigious legal firm White & Case, where she assists in the defense of the same kinds of clients that she fought against while she was employed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, in a summary of this piece, Lady Stewart was surprised to come over to the crypto side of things and realize that institutions and crypto sectors despise the SEC. The hatred for them genuinely derives from the fact that they are unable to cooperate with one another. Criminal businesses just want to be regulated, and they want to collaborate with the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), but the SEC has repeatedly prevented them from doing so. And then, in some very bullish news for us, she feels that Gary Geller will be forced to leave before his term is up in 2026, because both the Democrats and the Republicans simply do not like him. This is a really bullish piece of information for us. He will be fired in exactly 1 week's time, regardless of who wins the election. This means that he will depart from his position. It is scheduled that his head will begin to be hung from a guillotine on November 5th. But Gary Gensler is currently being challenged by a number of individuals, including Edwin Stewart, who are either current or former employees of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Taking Hester Pierce as an example, she is currently serving as one of the commissioners of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and she has again and repeatedly said in public that the policies and lack of regulatory frameworks that are caused by the SEC are utterly incorrect. Consider giving this a listen. What are some of the reasons that you believe it is essential for the country to establish policy and legislation that are more favorable to cryptocurrency? I believe that, as I indicated earlier, it is not about whether one is in favor of or against a crypto. It is about declaring that I am a regulator, and that it is my responsibility to regulate in a manner that enables the markets to choose what they want and what they do not want. And the complaint that I have leveled against us is that we have adopted a stance that is unequivocally opposed to cryptocurrency in the manner in which we interpret our legislation, and I believe that it would be a terrible idea for us to act in such a manner. My opinion is that we ought to return to our neutral stance. In addition, this indicates that we do work with individuals and assist them in determining how to achieve the goals that they have set for themselves, while still adhering to the objectives that we have set for ourselves in terms of securities law. And we are able to accomplish it. We would not have any trouble carrying it out. Although it would involve some effort on your part, it is not completely impossible. I believe that it is the responsibility of a regulator to take new information and circumstances and to collaborate with individuals in order to determine how they fit within the existing framework. After that, the public should be given the opportunity to make their own choices regarding whether or not they want certain things. When it comes to the United States of America, individuals ought to be able to make their own decisions. Therefore, that is the kind of future that I have high hopes that we will be able to create with a regulatory framework that is more impartial. Because of this, I am currently experiencing a significant amount of discomfort in my back. It is 1 week away from the beginning of a generational run, a moment that is like a switch being flipped. There is a great deal of money to be earned in this space right now, which is why I decided to create a Discord server that is open to everyone who wants to join. Right now, there are 440 of us who are working toward the goal of gaining financial independence and spreading our expertise in order to make as much money as possible during this cycle. Therefore, if you are interested in joining, please click on the link that is provided in the explanation below. In only 1 week from now, not only will we have the re-elections, but we will also have Gary Gensler's resignation stopwatch, if you will. However, Elizabeth Warren, who is also a suspected accomplice of his, will be fired in the near future as well. John Deaton emphasizes in this piece that we are in dire need of a big reform in the politicians, leaders who will truly support innovation and adopt the technology, rather than fighting against it and lying to the people. This is a need that we are in terrible need of. When it comes to that, we require fresh faces and younger leaders. In addition, Elizabeth Warren is the very last thing that this nation requires. In this piece, he describes how closely these two interviews are related to one another. In the same way, you have a totally distinct perspective on the Bitcoin sector. Senator Warren has stated that she intends to construct an anti-crypto army in order to curb what she considers to be the threat that cryptocurrency poses to the sustainability of the economy, the protection of consumers, the environment, and national security. Your criticism of her and the federal authorities stems from what you consider to be an excessively harsh approach to the regulation of cryptocurrency. What's the right? This just shows you how dumb and conniving Elizabeth Warren really is. Going from anti-crypto holding hands with Jamie Dimon, also telling Gary Gensler what questions she will ask him and how he should answer them, to now claiming she has no issue with people buying and trading of rubbish. We are now 1 week away from a day that, in my opinion, will be truly historic. On this day, we will most likely witness new all-time highs with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I am still working on keeping my retail sales at a reasonable level. At this point, the only people participating in the space are institutions and early investors. We are still waiting for retail to enter the market. Best is still as well. Now, just 2 days after the re-elections, we have another FOMC meeting, and according to BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, who stated on Bloomberg, we will have at least another 25 basis point interest rate cut this year. And of course, there will be many more to happen in 2025 as well.